here's Brody Brazil.
So this is going to be my regular week in review video of the San Francisco Giants, and don't get distracted that I'm calling it second impressions, because I truly feel like the first impressions happened on the first road trip, San Diego, then Los Angeles, and also the first homestand of the season, the Padres again, and then the Washington Nationals came to Oracle Park. It was during those four series where we really got our first impressions individually and collectively. And look, there's a lot of changes with this team in the dugout, on the field, procedure, mindset, all of that a little bit different than maybe it was in the last several years. Now, sitting 6-10 right now, I don't know that anybody is thrilled with that, especially with the expectations as high as they were, but I'm also not ready to be concerned yet. Am I aware of concern? Am I aware that people are watching things a little bit more closely right now? Sure. But through 16 games and a little more than 2 weeks of the baseball season, there is plenty of time to fix things. I honestly think if you get through April right around 500, that's a nice way to establish yourself into a season. You're not going to bury yourself going 500 in the month of April, which we are now basically halfway through. So in this video, we'll look at a couple individuals, and then we'll take some bigger picture points at the very end. Jordan Hicks has been absolutely amazing and impressive. He's made 3 starts. Now, he's got 2 wins, but the Giants have won every single game that he started. Like, what does that say? That's the whole point of a starting pitcher. You want your team, some way, shape, or form, to go on and win the day that you start. 2-0 is his record. He's gone 18 innings total. He's got 3 walks, only 3 walks in those 3 starts, and he struck out 13 in the process. He's given up 3 runs. You do the math, his ERA sits at 1 flat. He's using the sinker a lot, 57%, the sweeper 22% of the time, the split finger 14%, and that 4-seam fastball 7% of the time. I really just like the run on his fastball. I think it's got so much movement. He has been electric, and I don't know if that's the whole bullpen thing carrying over back into the starts, but certainly he brings some juice to his starts. And I think he might be, no disrespect to Harrison or Webb, maybe you kind of knew what you were supposed to get out of those two. I'll talk about Blake Snell in a minute too. But I feel like Jordan Hicks is the most pleasant part of the rotation thus far. But it comes with a little bit of concern. And I know a lot of people are talking about this. I'm definitely thinking about it too, and I have been. The most he's ever pitched in a single season professionally is only 105 innings, and that was back in 2017 at A-ball level. So he's already 18 innings into this year. We're talking 1/6 of the way, basically, to 100-plus innings pitched, basically, simple math. So you got to figure out how this is going to play out for the Giants and for Jordan Hicks. Is there a need to pace him? How would you go about doing that? Is it shorter pitch counts, shorter outings? I don't know if you want to get into the whole opener for him type situation. But also, like, if you kind of shorten him down, how do you keep him fresh if you need to stretch him back out again? How do you, most importantly, keep the momentum with Jordan Hicks? I mean, this has gone so swimmingly. I don't want to touch anything. I don't want to change anything for him. I don't want anything to be different at this point. However, like, it is really important to figure out, what does inning 80 look like this year? What does inning 115 look like? What does inning number 140 look like? I hope he gets there. Gosh, at this point, I mean, I hope he gets to 175, 180 innings pitched. But we'll see how it goes for Jordan Hicks. A great story right now. It requires a little bit of thought right now for down the road. Jung-Hoo Lee. Let me begin with a quote from his manager, Bob Melvin, on number 51, Jung-Hoo Lee. Quote, "It's amazing how quickly he is acclimated. Almost a shock to ever see him strike out," end quote. And I agree. That's one of the first things I noticed about Jung-Hoo Lee. The first couple series, this guy was making contact pretty much every time he swung the bat. Like, there was rarely ever swing and miss, even if he fouled off a pitch or hit a sac fly or hit one to the outfield. Rare that he didn't put the bat on the ball when he swung the bat. Everybody also talked about, well, he hit 360-something, I think, career overseas. And what will that translate to in North America with Major League Baseball? Look, this is just him out of the gate. He's already hitting 242, which I think is maybe about 18, 20 points lower than where I'd love to see him, but still 242 to start off. That's not bad. He kind of had a little bit of a rut. And look, this is the rookie season for him in Major League Baseball. He's going to have the edge at first. Pitchers are going to adjust to him. He's going to adjust back to pitchers. We've seen this with so many young players in their career. He also carries a .290 on-base percentage so far. 15 hits, not a lot of homers. That's not his game, although he has hit one. He's only walked 5 times, and he's only struck out 6 times in his at-bats. He has, right now, 2 of the Giants' total 6 stolen bases for this season. And they stole those 6 bags only in the course of 2 of the games they've played so far out of 16. More on that in just a second. I'm a little bit concerned because as the leadoff guy, you want him getting on base. You want the rest of your lineup to drive him in. He's only scored 7 runs. And as an everyday player, as an everyday leadoff hitter, I mean, I know the Giants offense has been what it's been, but you'd like to see that number for him go up a certain amount. The bigger picture, like I said, let's see what he's doing in June, in July, in August. Let's see how he lasts in this duration of this many games at this high of intensity and competition. But I really like what we're seeing so far from Jung-Hoo Lee. And defensively, I know that won't get talked about a lot. I know there was the game where he had the sun in his eyes with the kind of twilight-ish type start, but I think he's only going to get better out there in center field. The at-bats, the offense, that's obviously the hard part. I think the defense is definitely going to come even quicker for Jung-Hoo Lee. All right, Chappie, let's move on to my boy Matt Chapman. Kind of frustrating that he's only hitting 200, and he's got 3 dingers, and 2 of them came in the first win down in San Diego for the Giants this season and for their manager, Bob Melvin. He struck out 16 times in 65 ABs, and Chappie kind of goes through these streaks and these ruts. It is what it is. That's known about him. But I will say, when he makes contact on the baseball, it shows, and you can hear it. I mean, he is 9th this season right now in Major League Baseball exit velocity. Now, I know some of you just rolled your eyes because old Brazil busted out exit velo, but he knows how to barrel up a baseball. He's one of the league leaders in that category, 94.5 miles an hour on average off the bat. I'm just saying that if you're hitting the ball well and you're hitting it hard, now, again, the strikeouts are there. I'd like to see that decrease. But if he can continue hitting the ball well, squaring them up, things are going to work for Matt Chapman. I also think that you knew this was coming. He would create a defensive highlight reel by the first 2.5 weeks of the season. He's already done that. How many plays have you heard, like watching a game or listening on the radio, where one of the announcers is like, I can't believe that play by Matt Chapman? Well, if you've been following his career and you've been watching him on an every game basis, like, you know that's what he's capable of. But it's kind of been enjoyable to see everybody else, well, they enjoy what Matt Chapman is doing and kind of realize how real good he is defensively at third base. I also like the video, the interview I saw with Logan Webb. He was praising Matt Chapman already. Clubhouse leader, type of guy you need, a born winner. Again, those are all the things I also already knew you would get for the Giants with Matt Chapman coming in. And again, I know he can get streaky in a lot of years, and I know that typically May is actually his worst month in the splits of all his years of Major League Baseball, but let's see what he does. Not the start he wanted offensively, but if and when he and some others, I'll just say Jorge Soler too, this is not just a Chappie thing in terms of the offense. This is a handful of players that need to come around, but certainly you'd like to see Matt Chapman do it sooner than later. All right, let's move on to Blake Snell. This is also an interesting one, kind of a frustrating one so far for Giants fans. And you think about the acquisitions of the offseason, Soler and Chapman and Jung-Hoo Lee, and then Blake Snell was the ultimate last one there. You want these things to work out real good, real soon. And they even started Blake Snell with kind of a soft landing. He missed, obviously, all of spring training. They didn't have him start in any of the 2 series against the Padres or the Dodgers. They had him wait to face the Washington Nationals. First time out was at, 72 pitches? That one didn't go well. And then yesterday against Tampa Bay, only 4 innings, another 7 earned runs to go along with 6 hits against the team that drafted him back in the day. So as Snell sits right now, 0-2 with a 12.86 ERA. So nobody's exactly starting to panic yet. I mean, again, 2 starts, only these 2 games, only 7 total innings. He has recorded 9 strikeouts, so that part of his game has been there. And I do want to say that if you actually watch these games, he looks like he's not far off. But he's also walked 4 in only 7 innings pitched, so there are some location issues to kind of iron out here. He's thrown 150 pitches, only 87 strikes. Usually that ratio is a little bit more of the 67% strikes to total pitches thrown. It's only a little bit more than half right here. And I realize his first time out, he was on a pitch count. And I know that even yesterday in Tampa Bay, still very monitored in terms of how long they actually wanted him to go in a game. So even if he was doing well, it was probably going to end sooner than everybody wanted it to. And I know we're still talking about that's still in the no spring training mode and he's behind everybody, behind the curve. It's unfortunate that that's the way it played out with him and his agent and all the teams that pursued him and he considered. I mean, for him, maybe there is some of a setback there that he missed all of that and he's just catching up. And as I've said before, in June and July, you won't remember any of that stuff. It's just that right here, right now, we're going through that. So I think the ultimate takeaway with Blake Snell is, you know about a two-time Cy Young winner. You know a guy that totally turned a corner last year and was unlike anybody else pitching-wise in Major League Baseball. You kind of have to take whatever you get here in this month of April. And I guess I'm charting it out to maybe 2 more starts, 3 more starts. You would hope in the next 2 to 3 starts, you get the Blake Snell that San Francisco went out and got, right? And we'll give it that time. I think to rush this right here, right now, of course, you just opened the Christmas present. Of course, you want to play with the toy, but you can't really get there yet because of the situation. I understand how that's kind of a double-edged sword right now in San Francisco. Michael Conforto, let's go back to maybe the positive side here. Probably the most consistent, definitely their best power hitter on the team. A .298 batting average. He leads the team with 4 dingers. He has scored 10 runs. Again, that's more than Jung-Hoo Lee, the leadoff hitter. And he's also driven in 13 runs. I think he's got the best chance to hit 30 homers for the San Francisco Giants. And way back in the early 2000s, Barry Bonds was the last to do it. Conforto did it last year. I think he can do it again this year, even though he's slowed down a little bit, had a couple early ones in the start of the season. I think he will get back to form sooner than later. If you look at his spray chart, by the way, left-handed bat, total pull hitter to the right side. So maybe spread out the spray chart just a little bit. Usually that shows a healthy hitter, somebody who's taken it opposite field. But I don't want to change anything that's been working here. Again, the average and the power for Conforto, definitely leading the clubhouse in terms of the offense. Does strike out a fair amount. His K rate is 21%, although he also fares pretty well in the hard hit category. 49% is where he sits, and he's got an average exit velocity. Yep, I'm going there again, 89.4 miles an hour. So he hits the baseball loud and hard when he does make contact. Nick Ahmed, and this is such an interesting story. The Giants are in reverse, so lucky to have acquired him back on February 26th. They signed him to a minor league contract with an invitation to spring training that, let's be honest, was already underway. 33 years old, had played 10 years of Major League Baseball, all with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and San Francisco just timed out. They were lucky to get him. This was a good option for the Giants, and it was a good chance for Nick Ahmed. The chance to play every day, the chance to be a regular, the chance to be on a really good team, stay in the division. He started off 12 for 46 at the plate. That's a .261 average, so we'll definitely take that. Also playing a critical defensive position. It's not easy to go out and just find a shortstop kind of last minute that can suit your needs. Now, I know the Giants have Marco Luciano waiting in the wings, and Luciano at last check has about a .333 average in 50 at-bats so far in AAA. You like to see those numbers. And Nick Ahmed is certainly aware of Luciano in the pipeline and in the system. But as for right now, if you're calling this a problem, it's a great problem to have. You can be patient with Luciano. You can let Ahmed play the way he's playing. Look, if Ahmed was struggling, hitting a .150, then maybe you might be more pressured to bring Luciano in. At this point, there's no reason to rush anything. Play Ahmed as long as you need him, as long as it feels right. And then bring in Luciano whenever that situation also feels like the right thing to do. So I think as a first and kind of second impression on the Giants, I think they're so fortunate to have Nick Ahmed playing shortstop. And then how could I not talk about LaMonte Wade Jr.? He has, in the last handful of years, become a personal favorite of mine. And maybe it's because of the days of covering a team like the Oakland A's. I tend to like the scrappy players, the guys that are like, he always comes up clutch for you. And with a nickname like Late Night Lamont, I mean, this guy's always in the right situation at the right time. And this year, as you'd expect, his playing time and opportunities, they're not consistent or regular by any means. They're a little sporadic, but 15 for 40 at the plate already. Yeah, that's a .375 batting average. We've seen him at first base 9 times. We've seen him in left field once. We've seen him in right field 8 different times. He has scored 7 runs. Again, that's as many as the Giants' leadoff hitter, Jung-Hoo Lee. He's also drove in 4 runs. I also think this kind of brings up a fun dilemma, maybe, for the Giants as a team. You've got a player like this who is performing so well as a utility guy and in certain spots and circumstances. Do you almost want to expand his role? Isn't that tempting? To give him more regular playing opportunities, to put him in the starting lineup on a more consistent basis? You do, but sometimes certain players are just not, as crazy as it sounds, effective when they're used on an everyday basis. And I don't want to name names, but I know a few people like that across Major League Baseball. That's been the course of their career. How they most help the team is in these certain spots and chances and opportunities. So maybe that's the way that Bob Melvin continues to play it. But I got to tell you, the value for me of LaMonte Wade Jr. on this team, this is one of those glue guys. This is one of those players you want and need to have to be successful down the road. Somebody who can do multiple things, play multiple positions, can provide the offense, just has that clutch by nature thing going on with them. And so if the Giants get close to playoffs or in the playoffs or they make a run or a push for something, just mark my words, LaMonte Wade Jr., he's not going to get all the highlights and all the accolades. As you well know, in the last couple of years as being part of the Giants, he's been a critical piece, although maybe not one of the most highly regarded pieces. But I just wanted to talk about him because I still appreciate him and everything he does. Okay, some other themes of the season so far. I'll quickly run through these. The Giants, in a span of 7 games from the 4th of April to the 12th of April, they didn't homer for 7 straight games. That was the first time in a long time. Gosh, I had the stat. I don't remember how many years it had been, but it had been a handful of years. I also feel like in games, they're chasing it a lot. They'll go down by a run or 2, and it'll just sit there for most of the game. And then they'll score 1 or get close or tie it and then give the lead right back to the opposition. If you look at how many innings they've played versus how many innings they've led or trailed in games, it just feels like they're a team that so far is chasing the opposition most games on the scoreboard. The bullpen has also been hit or miss. In some games and nights, the bullpen will hold down the opposition, give the bats a chance to claw back. Other nights, the offense keeps scoring, and then the bullpen keeps giving up more runs. So they've been good in spots. They've also been kind of rough in spots. For the bats, runners on base, the batting average with runners in scoring position, also the amount of runners left on a consistent basis, those numbers do not favor the Giants. That clutch nature, they just have not had it so far this season. And I think overall, like if you look at the roster and you look at the names, the roster doesn't match the output of the team. And that's kind of in a multitude of different ways, whether it's just the overall record at 6-10, or the team batting average, or again, the home runs or runners in scoring position. I feel like this roster on paper is capable of so much more, but it's early. I think we'll eventually see it. On that note, I'm looking for Jorge Soler to break out at some point eventually. He wasn't featured in this video, but certainly is a player that is having a rough start in San Francisco. I think he's capable of a lot more. The Giants as a team, I mentioned things they struggle with, offense and scoring runs as a team, and just kind of like Matt Chapman, they hit the ball hard. When they hit the ball, they hit it hard. As a team, they have the 4th highest exit velocity in all of baseball. I feel like this is a trend. I keep mentioning this. 89.9 miles an hour on average off the bat for this entire team. And yeah, they don't steal a lot of bases. They have 6 total steals. I just mentioned earlier that Jung-Hoo Lee has 2 of those 6, but those 6 total steals only came in 2 different games. They've got to figure out a way to get the running game going, to utilize their speed, and the players that can do it, you have to start manufacturing runs. You need to turn a walk into a double, or a single into a double, or a double into a triple, so a sac fly will bring that runner home. So keep an eye out on San Francisco and stolen base attempts in the near future. So once again, 6-10 in the first 16 games. No, not great. It's not what anybody would have hoped for or entirely expected. It's not that much of a hole that's been dug. You go on a 4-game win streak and you're back at 500. And again, I'll say it one more time. If you end this month of April just at 500, that's what a lot of good teams do. They don't even really start turning it on until May and June and July, and maybe you'll get Cobb healthy back in the rotation sooner than later. Maybe you'll get Robbie Ray right around the All-Star break. There's a lot of incentives for this team as the season goes on. So for right now, you got to get back to 500. You got to do it by the end of this month. And then you can kind of start to establish the direction of this season. Hey, you made it here to the end of this video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me and this video and this channel. And by the way, also make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button because I would love to see you back here next time.